All right, so welcome to a another 20 questions. I'm here with Michael Kiggins, and I've got admittedly more than 20 questions. But with that, we'll just totally dive in. So, what is the first book you remember reading?
I think it was Richard Scarry's The Best Storybook Ever. It had
Oh,
like a an anthropomorphized lion on the cover. Um,
okay.
and yeah, just a very simple young kids picture book.
All right. So far, honestly, I have to say I've been impressed with everybody's answers because I'm lucky that I remember beyond high school. So
Yeah.
um so who's your favorite author, just period?
Uh, um, Probably Alexander Chee.
Oh, cool.
So his debut was Edinburgh, and then he wrote a book of essays, How to Write an Autobiographical Novel. He also wrote another novel called The Queen of the Night. It's about opera and lots of other stuff, but it's just poetic and beautiful, and he can his just some cutting lines that are just at the same time just gorgeous.
And he's a sweetheart. So we need to introduce you.
Okay,
Just saying.
I'll take it. Yeah,
um and who influenced your writing other than Alexander?
I mean, early on, I grew up reading a lot of comic books, and a ton of X-Men. So like Chris Claremont, his run in the '80s. And I also read a lot of Stephen King and wrote a really horrible, sort of Stephen King-esque supernatural novel in high school that everybody passed around. And then in college, I discovered William S. Burroughs, and I went down a rabbit hole with him for several years, and just really loved what he did in Queer and A Naked Lunch and the Nova Express, Soft Machine, and The Ticket That Exploded. And then I found Darcy Steinke, and her Suicide Blonde and Jesus Saves. And I think the next big person would probably be Dennis Cooper. I write nothing like him. I don't cover the subjects he does, but he's just like his prose is just so just streamlined. And it's not something I can do, but I definitely see some beauty in, quite often when he's talking about pretty horrific things.
Great answer. I was going to say who influenced your writing, but you sort of you answered that. So,
Yeah.
um, which books made the biggest impact? What books made the biggest impact on you?
Um, Oddly, Alfred Kazan's Walker in the City. It's more autobiography, memoir, maybe, and just again, just very clean writing style, but also at times lush. Um, Again, for all its weirdness and just inventiveness, Naked Lunch, and I really had to, force myself to, you know, stop trying to be Burroughs. Um, and I, yeah, I'm just sort of all over the place. It's like when you ask, like, what's your favorite book? I'm like, check my mood. It varies. Um, but uh, yeah, I mean, getting well out of my wheelhouse and sort of like the genre my novels in, like Ted Chiang's short stories. He mostly writes science fiction and fantasy. Um, I just think are, he puts out a short story like once every few years, but it's like perfect. Um, so yeah, I just sort of all over. I'm a magpie, I guess.
No, no, I love it. I absolutely love it. Um, if you could read only one book the rest of your life,
Um,
and you can like totally punt and be like 5.
I've got two. I mean, as a one of my masters is in theology, so I should say the Bible.
Nah.
But but if we're talking fiction, I would. It's a toss up between Moby Dick and House of Leaves. Um, you
I haven't
know,
heard Moby Dick in so long. Oh my god, I miss Moby Dick.
it's hilarious, and I mean, it starts off super dark, right? Like
Right?
Ishmael is considering passively killing himself, right? And I don't know. It's just profound and moving and hilarious, and yeah, it's just I could see it just I've read it 3 times. I could see it just continually opening up new things. As for Mark Z. Danielewski's House of Leaves,
Mm,
I've only read that a couple times,
yeah.
and it's a chore, right? It can be a chore, but it's also like maybe a never-ending puzzle. So that could be interesting as well.
Excellent. Excellent. What do you reread all the time?
Probably the most it would be Peter Watts's Blind Sight. It's a hard sci-fi novel set at the end of the 22nd century after the Earth has been basically all these alien probes like line up equidistant and essentially take a picture. Um, and he was a marine biologist, so there's lots of stuff about anatomy, physiology, and sort of non-carbon based life. And he also apparently at that time we've resurrected an offshoot of humanity that were essentially vampires. They're not magical or anything, but
Yes.
they can't make this protein that regular humans do, so they have to eat humans. And the thing is, they are, if you know, like that sort of optical illusion of a cube, like you've got, if you look at it one way, you see a cube going this direction, and if you they can see both cubes at once, right? So they're like super intelligent. So
Nice.
I read that probably once a year. It's really good. But lately, even before all the Twitter Dickolas material, like I've read "This Is How You Lose the Time War" by Amala Motar and Max Gladstone probably 5 times. It's just a beautifully poetic novella and really creatively they find really creative ways to write each other letters, like in the rings of a tree, and it's just yeah, it's just brilliant.
Love it. Totally love it. Um, what book would you save in a book burning? And you don't have to do one.
Yeah, no, I've got one. I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but David Wanarovich is close to the knives. Uh,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
yeah, just really important gay writer who unfortunately died from AIDS early on.
Mm, no. Wow. Awesome. Um, and what inspired you to write this book?
Which version?
Oh my god, that was the best answer. Thank you.
All right, so the original version, which I started, you know,
The last version. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea.
yeah,
Go
no, I mean,
ahead.
originally it was a very late night, early morning drunken phone call from a guy I was dating who lived in Little Rock, and I was living in
Arkansas?
Memphis. Yeah, and
Oh, okay.
I was living in Memphis at the time, and he had stayed out at the club. I had gone home. He said he was leaving, and he had gotten into a fight with his ex. and then I had to like get him to my apartment so he wasn't, driving, cross state drunk. Um, and it just sort of started there. But honestly, I've rewritten this novel like probably 5 times, different points of view. Originally, Stefano was the main character. Now he's like a secondary character. But when I dug it back out of the trunk and decided to like really give it a one last big go, because I've tried to get this published many times and gotten close here and there. um I decided, I wanted it to be about Brian, and I wanted it to be more about his OCD and just his capacity, or maybe willingness, to lie to himself.
Hmm,
um so, and I also wanted Memphis to be more of a character, and at least according to one reader who is a prolific author himself and lives in Memphis, he in his blurb he says I get it right. So I'm proud of that.
nice. All right, cool. Who did you actually allow to read the book when you were writing it, or did you allow
Uh,
anyone?
oh yeah, I'd give it to anybody. um, yeah, my book was kind of like the guy on Grinder who's never off Grinder.
Oh my
What
god,
what
that was.
house what house can he sleep in that night?
I'm sorry. That was fabulous.
Um, so in an early draft, people in my MFA program in 2002 read very different chapters of it. My thesis chair, Randall Keenan, who died not too long ago, he really sort of went through it and gave me great feedback. But since then, um, some close friends in town have read it. Eddie Charlton, Andrew Fawn, and John Purdom. They all, at different times, gave me pretty good feedback.
Excellent.
Oh, and of course, my husband, who's
Well,
read
I'd hope so.
who's, 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 who's read it too many times. But the last time, you know, because when y'all bought it, it was a very slim novel, and I realized through the editing process that I knew I had skipped a whole bunch of months, and I realized I needed to sort of twist the screws into Brian a bit more. So I wrote a whole new part, and went from like 54 to 93,000. And
Yeah, small changes.
sorry.
Uh,
Um,
all good.
but no, like I gave it to my husband to read on a business trip, and when I picked him up from the airport, and we went to our sort of local tap room near our house, and he had notes.
Oh, check him
And yeah, he deals with like million line spreadsheets every day. So
out.
he was like, even though this is a lot longer, it reads a lot quicker. So I yeah,
Nice. All right. We love your husband.
he's great.
It's great. Damn, check him out.
Mhm.
Um, if you were at a dinner party with four seats, what four authors or other people would you invite to your table?
They don't have to be living, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Ursula K. Le Guin,
Oh
Alexander
wow.
Chi, Alexander Chi, N.K. Jemisin, and Dennis Cooper.
God damn. All right. We need to chat because I have a sneaking suspicion we're in like similar circles. And
Okay,
if
bring
you
it.
were to meet Alexander, like, let me see if we can. Yeah. So okay. What?
I'm trying not to geek out. All right.
And he is as brilliant in person as he
Yeah.
is on the page. So anyway, okay. So what is your drug of choice?
Uh, beer and running.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. What book is your guilty pleasure?
What book? I would say probably Blindsight by Peter Watts.
Okay. What movie or TV show is your guilty pleasure?
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes. Nice. Okay. Do you read with music or with quiet or with sound?
I'm usually in a loud environment. Like I can read in bars easy, and sometimes if it's quiet, I can't concentrate.
Oh, okay. Do you read? Oh, no, did that one. Okay. If you could ask for one thing to change the world, what would it be?
For every bigot to feel the harm they've caused others and being unable to move on with their lives until they made restitution.
I feel a novel in that.
Maybe, yeah.
Right? That
Um,
would be kind of cool.
I mean, a lot of my new stuff is more speculative, and and the train kept moving is very just realistic and grim. But a lot of my short stories have been more science fictiony and fantasy
Mm,
ish.
okay.
Well, maybe, yeah.
We need to do that. I'm just saying. Okay.
Okay.
What does your reading environment look and sound like?
I'm either sitting at the kitchen counter or on the couch, or um, just after work at the tap room. That's about it.
Cool. Paper, ebook, or audio?
These days, I check out a lot of stuff from the library, and I usually get it as a Kindle. And if I can get the audiobook at the same time, I'll sort of switch back and forth.
Oh,
If I really like the book, I will buy a copy.
mhm.
But yeah, like I listen to a lot of audiobooks while running and hiking. So
That's awesome. Who would you cast as your main characters and why?
for Brian, I would probably go with Cameron Monaghan, who um, and I just spaced out on the oh, who was on a Showtime series called Shameless with William H Macy, just about this really sort of uh, um, tragic and just flawed family in Chicago. He's tall enough. He's got red hair, and most importantly, he's got a pretty good range.
Okay.
And in that show, he plays gay,
Okay.
um, and he does it convincingly. Um, for Adam, the antagonist, Matthew Noska, I think is his name. He hasn't been in much. He's also a model, but he's just sort of like a blonde, very fit, handsome guy who I think could pull off the sort of the cocky arrogance that Adam has.
Hmm.
Um, and in one of the questionnaires, y'all asked about sort of dream casting, who would play who, and I really struggled with Stefano and Chris. But for Stefano, I think I settled on an actor named Hunter Sassone. I'm
Mhm.
not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And for Chris, Dylan Burnside. Um, they seem like they could pull it off. But yeah,
Mm.
that was of all the things y'all asked me to fill out, that was maybe the toughest. Like the synopsis, sure, here you go. But
It's like boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
yeah,
It's like, yeah. No, I totally get it. Um, if you could meet anyone, who would it be and what would you ask them?
that's another difficult one.
We don't ask easy.
I know. I mean, I thought I could go very morbid with it. Um, but I love true crime and you know serial kill. I mean, I don't love serial killers, but you know what I mean.
It's
Um,
yeah, it's fine. Well,
but
honestly, I don't know. I don't know your partner, so
yeah, there are no bodies in our crawl space.
well, that's
Yeah.
good.
Um, like part of me really would like to meet Jack the Ripper and ask him why.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and partly just to find out who it actually was.
Mm,
So
mm,
I don't know.
cool. Let's see. Okay, describe yourself in 5 words.
One of my straight friends, when I asked him this question, he was like, "A very good listener and gay."
Did he for
But
real? That's not right. That's
he's no, he's a lovely person.
I was gonna be
Witty,
like, yeah, I think you need to kind of reconsider the
no,
whole friend thing.
no. He said he meant it as a joke. I would
Clearly.
I would say witty, unfiltered, or you might call that tactless. I've also been
For that.
called I've also been told I'm kind, quirky, and I'm a bit of a catastrophist.
Actually, that in terms of novels, that works.
Yeah, well,
um, describe your life in 5 words. Hopefully, there's no catastrophist in it.
no, much better than I deserve.
Wait, do that
Much,
again.
much, much better than I deserve.
Yeah. If I'm your partner right now, I'm like swooning. I'm just saying. So if you have a date tonight,
Uh,
okay. What was your last guilty pleasure? It could be a food, activity, anything.
Um, uh, lunchtime sex on Thursday.
Ooh. Okay, I kind of
You
love
asked.
that. Okay. That was sort of fabulous. Okay. Let's see.
I tried.
You're like, I work at it and I succeed. Okay, so if you could write yourself into a novel, would you be the hero or the villain? And why?
I'd like to be the hero, but I could see myself being a villain who thinks he's a hero, and just thinking I'm doing the right thing and not being aware of the damage I'm causing to other people.
Oh my god, that was a brilliant answer. Okay. If there is anyone that you dream you could work with, who is it and why?
So I was thinking sort of, like film adaptations, and I loved what Darren Aronofsky did with Hubert Selby's Requiem for a Dream.
Oh, yeah.
And I love his other movies as well. I would just be thrilled to see what he would do with the material of my novel,
Okay.
and the soundtrack would probably rock too. So
Okay. um Anything what animal would you run wild with?
wolves,
Wolves? All right.
wolves. I mean, just think about the way the world is, the way they sense the world, right? Their sense of smell and their
Mm.
hearing. I, you know, that would be interesting. And you might hear my cat yelling because apparently I've never petted him. Um,
You too?
yeah.
uh, when was the last time you ran wild, and what did you do, and what made it wild? And I do this every time. Like, I did not come up with all these questions. So
Well, I asked and I got permission to share this story.
sweet. Okay.
So years and years ago, me and my now husband, then boyfriend, went to a weekend long rugby tournament. We played for the Nashville Grizzlies, a straight friendly team. And this tournament's called Pitch a Tent. You go to this sort of rented out farmland and you camp out. You get there on Friday, you camp out, you drink up, and then on Saturday you play rugby sevens, which is
Mhm.
7 players and 7 minute halves. And then the tournament's over by the end of the day. And then, they had like a beer truck, right? Like a semi trailer and just kegs.
Mhm.
So there's like a really gross lake and, camping areas over there. There's this huge hill that we always stayed on. We walked around the backside of the hill, the party's happening, people are just getting shit faced. And we lay down on the grass, made out, looked at the stars, and wound up having sex right there. It was hot.
To say it sounds brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, the stars were amazing, and yeah, like we didn't get caught, so that was good.
All right.
But
I don't know. It sounds fabulous to me, but anyway.
yeah,
Okay. Um, do you write to music, and if so, what kind?
it varies. But when I do listen to music, it's sort of like my reading interests. It's all over the map. It can be Lucinda Williams or Janelle Monáe or DJ Shadow, Father John Misty, um, a lot of Nirvana, Mercury Rev, some of Trent Reznor's like sort of score work, like his score for uh, is it the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies? I think.
I think that's
Um,
right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, just it's a mix between songs with actual lyrics and singing and more just sort of atmospheric stuff.
Mhm. Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, or other?
I'm gonna have to go with Disney because they just about own everything.
Yeah.
But seriously, like Star Wars was like a formative thing for me. Um, and between that and Marvel, like yeah, I'm set.
Okay, cool. Tea or coffee?
Tea,
Appetizers or dessert?
appetizers,
Chocolate or vanilla?
raspberry.
Oh my god, that was perfect. Okay, so with that, thank you so so much. And that is another 20 questions. So yeah, this was awesome. I really
Okay.